those individuals who fall under the categories of people pleaser, codependent, always trying to fix other people's problems and issues rather than addressing their own issues. Those who are naive, lacking in experience with interactions with others, young and not knowing any better, gullible, people who aren't knowledgeable about reading others, and those people who are constantly seeking validation and approval from others. These are the type of people who are very susceptible to those who manipulate others and have bad intentions. All it takes is for the manipulators and the users and the narcissists to get what they want is to just become friends or lead the naive people to believe that they are friends, build up a rapport and gain their trust. And once they find out enough about the person to know whether they're vulnerable and easily manipulated, then they got them where they want them, and they can control them and get them to do just about anything that they want them to do. Although it's easy for someone observing them from the outside to call these people stupid or foolish, I understand how easy it is for someone who doesn't know any better to get sucked in, especially if the person has low self-esteem and doesn't know how to say no and defend themselves. It can be overwhelming. The best thing for people who are that vulnerable to do once they become aware that they're being manipulated and used is to distance themselves from the manipulative personalities. They're basically toxic people, and I've talked about toxic people and users and manipulators on this channel ad nauseum, and I will probably continue to talk about them ad infinitum because I am just tired of hearing all these stories and complaints from people who have been taken advantage of. I'm really just sick of it. People who I don't even know that well are complaining about how someone has damaged them and used and abused them. I mean, if you allow someone to abuse you, they're going to do it. They'll suck you dry until you realize what's going on and you put a stop to it. Once you find out that someone is a toxic person, you have to eliminate them from your life. You need to get away from these people fast, quick, and in a hurry. Now, I was talking in another video about these people that I used to work with. There's this guy who, and I'm describing these people just so that you can have a bit of a visual concept of their personalities and their background. But there is this one guy who is an Italian American from New York that I used to work with, and then another guy who is a Haitian by way of the Bahamas that I used to work with. They became friendly. The Italian American guy, who I'm going to call James, built up a rapport with the Haitian guy, who I'm going to call Jean. James told Jean that he was about to be homeless, and what had happened is that James was getting kicked out of the place that he was living with. He was living with this couple who were drug addicts, and he couldn't get along with the woman that was this dude's girlfriend. So she wanted him out, and he had to find another place to go. So James got really friendly with John and told him he had nowhere to go, and Jean took him in. So that was the biggest mistake of Jean's life. During lunch breaks, I would sit in the cafeteria with Jean, and he would constantly complain to me about how he allowed Jimmy to come live with him, and it was supposed to be just a temporary situation, and now it's turned into an indefinite situation. And he wanted James to leave, but he didn't have the heart to just put the man out there in the streets, because he would feel guilty if something were to happen to the man after he asked him to leave. And he was also worried about whether the man would have anywhere to go, because he didn't have any family in Florida. Most of his family and longtime friends were in New York. This guy would complain to me incessantly, almost every day, about James. He would tell me stories about how we'll go to these drug holes to find cocaine to fuel his drug addiction, and he would take whatever money he had left over, and instead of buying groceries and toiletries and personal care items for himself, he would take the money and do other stupid things like gamble the money away. Another complaint that he had about James is that James would never offer to pay him any rent. He'd also, since he wasn't buying any groceries, James would eat up Jean's food and then have the audacity to beg Jean to buy things for him that he needed and to borrow money from him. And I'm just sitting there listening to Jean complain about James, and I'm saying to myself, he's doing this because you are enabling him. He knows that you are a sucker and easily manipulated, and that you're easy to feel sorry for others. You know, all they have to do is run game on him and feed him some sob story, and they got him eating out of the palms of their hand. As long as he allows the man to take advantage of him, he's going to continue to do it. Another part of me also thinks that there has to be more to the story than that, because I can't, although I understand that some people are easily manipulated, I also can't understand why a grown-ass man, we're talking about a man who is in his late 50s, that being James, and another man, and another in John, who is in his early 60s, would allow a big, crusty, grown-ass man, old, to come live off of him like that. It just doesn't add up. If anything, and I'm not saying this applies to all Haitians. It just applies to some of the ones that I've encountered. But if anything, some Haitians are more likely to get over on others than to allow others to get over on them. The first thing some new Haitians that are new to the United States will do is to try to link up with a man or a woman in order to use their resources and to get their green card. I just found it fascinating and odd at the same time that Jean would allow a white American dude to get over on him like that. Then there's another aspect to the story that I think may be missing, and that is that I think there may have been some type of romantic involvement going on between them. Now, I don't have any direct evidence of that. Once again, sounds very suspect to me that a 60-something-year-old dude would allow a 50-something-year-old dude to take advantage of him. I don't have nothing against gay people. Whatever people do in their bedroom is largely their personal business, but James must have been slobbing on that cob real good to be able to live for free off of another man. All expenses paid. He didn't have to worry about buying groceries, didn't have to worry about rent, not even his own personal care items. He even had free rides to and from work or wherever else he needed to go, because James rarely, if ever, offered Jean any gas money. Another thing that I found really odd about these people is that Jean would refer to James as his son. Even though there wasn't much of an age difference between them, he would refer to James as his son, kind of like as a joke. And I'm like, how do you expect this dude to take you seriously if you're treating this man like he's a fucking child? I mean, come on, dude. Do you honestly? And then he's saying these things in front of other people. So it's no wonder that this man is behaving the way that he's behaving. Is because you're allowing him to take advantage of you and use you, and you're enabling him to do these things. And then Jean was also complaining to me that James had no intentions of saving up any money for a retirement, and he wasn't making any provisions for his future as far as trying to get some money together to get his own place, and at least to move out of Jean's place and to find somewhere else to go. I was like, well, why would he make any provisions for his future? You're not trying to push him, and you're not giving him any incentive to want to move out. So as long as you continue to make this man feel comfortable being there with you, he's not going to, there's no fire lit up underneath his ass to do anything any differently than what he has been doing. You have to be very careful about who you choose to take in the state of Florida. If you allow the last I checked, if you allow someone to reside with you, even temporarily, for more than 3 weeks, then that person becomes a tenant in your household. And you can't just, after that point, you just can't put the person out on the streets. Even if there's no leasing agreement between you, even if there's no written lease agreement between you, you would still be required by law to go to the court and file an official eviction notice on that person in order to have them removed from your premises. You can't just put the person out on the street. Otherwise, then you can be sued for an illegal eviction, and it would cost you damages. I know that sounds crazy, but that's how the law is. So if you're going to take somebody into your home, you might want to think about putting a limit onto the amount of time that you will allow that person to stay, and then ask them to leave periodically. Like, you may want to ask them to leave after maybe 1 or 2 weeks of being there, and then if you feel comfortable, you can allow them to come back after they've been gone for a certain period of time, but never allow them to stay beyond a certain period of time. That way they will never be able to establish themselves as a resident, as a tenant at your residence. But you have to check the laws in your state, to get the specific and exact time frames. I'm just talking off the top of my head based on my memory, so make sure you check the laws in your state, your local and state laws regarding that. To make a long story short, I just think that it's either John is an incredibly soft-hearted dude, or something was going on between those two. Had to be, because that's a very weird situation. Very bizarre. So alright, that's all I have to say. I'm out.